Alright, so we're gonna work on this flamethrower in 3ds Max and Substance Painter, and the first thing we're gonna do is to begin with a simple box such as this one. Of course, this is not gonna be really important in the long run, but we have to start somewhere. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna actually start creating kind of the body of the flamethrower and convert it to editable poly, and we will start editing some of these edges. Alright, so we selected all the edges all around, and right now we're gonna chamfer them actually. Using the chamfer tool, as you can see, we will go with something that looks like this, probably 1.5 centimeters, or actually use the value that works for you because it depends. Alright, so we're gonna copy this, keep holding shift, copy it as an instance, and from now on, right now we will try to actually create an inset here. Select the both of the polygons on both sides. Alright, so for now we can actually extrude this to the inside to create something that looks like this, which will actually work both ways because this is an instance, which means that everything we do over here is going to transfer to the other side automatically. Alright, so right now we're going to start adding some nice looking pieces, which is important to show the details and the complexity of the model. Make sure to activate the auto grade, which is really important for this job, and we're gonna actually increase the number of sides of the cylinder depending on how you want it to look like, and we will try to align it if this is the case. If you want to do this, you can do it as well, or you can directly use the some alignment tool or snapping tools depending on how good you are at doing that. Alright, so as you can see, I'm trying to make sure that this cylinder here is going to be chamfered in the sides. Also, we're going to make sure that it is going to look like exactly like we want it to be. And I'm holding shift all the time in order to extrude these edges, which is extremely effective and a fast way to do this type of work. Alright, so collapse when you're done. Right click, then collapse. Also, we are gonna start adding some other pieces. Alright, so we're gonna select these few polygons all around, select them one by one, or select one and skip the other. Also, we're gonna add these, and what we will do is very simple and straightforward, which is extruding those, because we are aiming at some little bit of actually kind of variation in the surface. We want kind of some of these polygons bumping out, which is a nice thing, especially for hard surface models, which is extremely important. Alright, so as you can see, I selected all these edges and connected them using two edges. And right now what we will do is we will actually start kind of creating something that looks like this. Alright, so let's do it again, but this time we are not going to select everything. So we're going to probably deselect some of the vertices closer to the center. Alright, so when we scale in, it's gonna look a little bit better than it was before. Okay, that was unnecessary, and right now we will actually start adding the next piece. All right, so this one here also is gonna be it's not gonna be that important, or it's not gonna be that complicated, I should say. So we align it to the center, and yeah, we adjust some settings. We can now add the next one, which is gonna be exactly on top of it. Make sure you work on or use the auto grid. Check that box because it is important to make sure that the surfaces are aligned perfectly. This one here, this cylinder with 6 sides is gonna kind of play the role of a bolt or something like this because it is what it is, and it is what we can see in the reference image. Alright, the next one here is gonna be different and is gonna be a little bit detailed than the previous ones. Alright, as you can see here, this one here is a little bit different. We actually used some of the old techniques we use all the time using the edge extrusion method, and right now we'll try to make it even interesting by actually detaching the outer polygons as an element. Make sure to detach them as alright, or you can do it manually actually, but you can always use or detach it as a clone, which is going to work better because we want to separate the whole thing from the body of this cylinder here. All right, so for the purpose behind this is actually we want to add a little bit of details over or around this piece because it's going to make things a whole lot more interesting. Alright, so make sure the distance between those is going to be equal. Alright, so we're going to select them one by one, actually every second one. Select one and skip one until you select the whole thing. Half of the whole thing actually, and extrude it like this to get this effect. I'm not actually trying to use the kind of advanced modeling techniques or something like that. In fact, if anything, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, and I'm trying to play by the book and make sure I'm doing everything kind of using base level skills and primitive techniques, so newcomers and people who really are not used to use 3ds Max on a high level can understand. And if it's kind of if it is something I want to do effectively and efficiently, I would use plugins and some of the advanced tools that can do this work a whole lot easier, and yeah, it's gonna allow me to get much better results quickly. But anyways, for example here, we could have easily used some bevel techniques, actually some Boolean techniques, and we can get this done very quickly. But Anyways, we're going to use some of the traditional techniques of modeling, which I believe is going to disappear in the future because the some of the technology that and techniques that plugin developers are using right now is interesting, and I'm sure that is going to be part of the 3D packages really soon. For example, chamfer modified the chamfer tools and the Boolean tools and some of the very advanced and very helpful tools for modeling. There's going to be a time when these tools are going to be part of the 3D package and everyone is going to be using them, which is I believe is not far from now. Alright, so right now we are going to, as you can see, we will extrude this inside. Alright, delete those polygons that we don't really need. Alright, so this cylinder here is going to be another one that is going to be kind of, this is a series of cylinders, one on top of each other, until we get to actually create a tube at the end, which is going to be kind of the end, which is going to connect us to the next piece. Alright, so we are changing some colors here and some materials because we want to see better. Alright, inset here, and yeah, like this, and detach this one because we want to create kind of a bridge between these two pieces. Alright, so we're gonna do the same thing here as well. And actually there are too many methods of doing this. You don't have to do this exactly, but yeah, probably this one is gonna be a nice one. Alright, so select these two and bridge them. For now, you need to flip the normals. Actually, you go to normals and flip it. Alright, so right now we'll try to create a line right there because we want to create an additional piece on top. And of course, you can use references, or you can use the reference image in the viewport to see exactly, or to get the proportions right from the reference image, or you can use your ability to measure distances just using your eyes and your experience with proportions and distances in 3D space, which is what I am relying on right now. I don't want it to be completely similar to it, but yeah, right now we are trying to create a box on top of the surface, but we are facing some weird problems somehow. So we are gonna actually use this surface, just use it straight from the body of the FlameThrower we have here. We don't want to actually complicate things. Sometimes we use what we have. Alright, so we are modifying now this plane, which is going to be the basis or the starting point of the next piece. Alright, this is kind of weird because I'm gonna be honest with you. Not everything I do is ideal, so bear with me here because I personally focus on the results. Something, for example, this is a voiceover of something I created. So by the time I'm creating this, I'm focusing on the end result. How I get there is not really that important, but I just keep in mind that that probably someone who does not really someone who is really not that great with Max is watching. So yeah, so I try to make it as logical as possible, because sometimes when I am not recording, I do some weird stuff. The most important thing for me is to get to the end result. I kind of I try to make it as logical, as I said, as logical as possible, and as followable as possible, so I can make it easier for others to follow. All right, so and I know that if I do something weird which does not make sense, I'm doing it because I know I can clean it up later. Even though working with triangulated shapes or geometry like this is gonna be a bit of a problem sometimes. Alright, so right now we are kind of creating some interesting shapes here, because this is how fuel meter or whatever that is. Alright, so we are adding some edges here in order to cut and extrude some polygons. Alright, so right now we will actually try to create a cylinder, actually a sphere on the side. Well, we actually need, this is not a sphere actually, this is a capsule. And we want half of it on the side, which is a nice thing of adding some interesting details. Alright, so or putting it on the side or in the side, and we will use just half of it. We want just half, like something like this. We want to rotate it 90 degrees. This is probably gonna be a floating geometry, so we don't have to worry too much about its geometry, because it's gonna be part of the high poly only. Alright, delete that and rotate it 90 degrees. Alright. Okay, right now we are trying to remove a whole section over here because this is how our reference look how our reference image is looking like, I guess. And yeah, we will actually add few edges just to make sure that this is that we are doing it properly, and we are gonna get rid of a good chunk of the body of the flamethrower. Alright, so right now we are gonna try to fix this by creating some bridging these open spaces right here. Also, we are gonna add something instead, which is gonna be a little bit cylindrical like this, as you will see in a minute. Alright, so we are gonna try to put everything in place, and yeah. Apply the symmetry modifier to copy this piece to the other side and um, get something that looks like this. Alright, so now we will use this. This is kind of this is gonna be interesting. Alright, so we will make sure that we are gonna be using extruding these edges. Keep holding shift in order to do this. Rotate. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is not the ideal way of doing this type of work. But anyways, actually a better way of doing this. This is embarrassing. This is not the very best way of doing it. Actually, I always think I was listening to something, or I was kind of busy while I was doing this. This is not the best way of doing this. I'm gonna be honest with you. We could have used a line here and kind of using a line and then using the fillet tool in order to round the corner, kind of chamfer the corner and create something round, and we could have gotten better result than this. But anyways, this is kind of the primitive way of doing this type of stuff. There is always a better way of doing things. This is the way of trying to keep things simple without actually thinking. Alright, not very bad. Not very bad. Just make sure, oh shit. This is interesting. Sometimes when you don't see what is going on the from the perspective, especially if you do this for a long period of time, you're gonna be surprised. And I've been using 3D software for a long period of time to see this happen in the most surprising ways. Sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes I worked on a few things, especially complicated things. I kind of, especially when I use reference images, I kind of enjoy following the reference image, for example, from the side. And after working on something for a half an hour or something, I realize now I go back to the perspective or to the 3D viewport, and you're gonna see the surprise, which is not gonna be a good one. That's why you need to check. You don't actually neglect looking at your model from multiple viewports, because sometimes something is getting messed up, is gonna kind of completely ruined, and from the viewpoint that you're seeing or that you're looking from, everything looks alright, but it actually isn't. So you're gonna make sure that you get good idea, or kind of look around and see if everything is fine from all sides. Alright, so right now we're gonna work on the handle or the grip. One thing is really important is to make sure that the proportions are right between all the pieces that we are creating. And I personally don't like using reference images too much. I kind of try to rely on my ability to kind of guesstimate how big these pieces are going to be, especially if it's going to be something kind of fantasy things like weapons that don't really exist in real life, or things that really don't actually make sense in real life because they have not been created yet, and we don't have a real reference of how big these things are or something like that, or how they are shaped. So this actually gives us the creative freedom to do whatever we want, which is a good thing. All right. Also, the all the pieces we are creating here are subject to change, not only in how their topology or the geometry we used, or how they look, but as well we want to change sometimes the proportion according to the rest of the pieces. Of course, this is the case if we are not using reference images, and we chose to kind of model as we feel, or as we want it to be, or as we see fit. Alright, so right now we will add a few other pieces, and and we will stop the tutorial until we jump to the next part. Alright, so this is, I think this is it for this part 1. Part 1 of this tutorial. If you have something to say, please leave it in the comment section below. Also, you can check some of our previous videos, and until then, I will see you in the next one.